Lifting with Leo, the chat show.
Oh, hello.
Look at you fancied up, huh?
I know. All dressed up for you.
How great is that shirt?
You love it. I'm loving it.
I love it.
I just want to be on a beach. That's
Okay. Why don't I have video?
That is a good question. I don't know. You might just not turn your camera on.
Let's see. It is.
Oh.
Let me try it again. Let me unplug it.
Okay.
If I unplug it, will the audio go out? It will, huh?
I'm not the most technically gifted, so I'm not sure. But there should just be a button at the bottom that says video, mute video.
Yeah, it says start video, and I hit it, and I'm getting a message that said it won't start. Please select another camera in settings. Where is settings? Let's see. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, Look at that face.
I'm here.
How are you, my love?
I'm lovely, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you. It's been a while.
Are we going to edit out all the technical difficulties or leave them in?
100%.
We're going to leave them in, right?
Or I like to keep it real and just.
Yeah, well, you got a technically inept old man here on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for wanting to do this. I was just.
Oh, I'm psyched about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
and the new hair looks great.
Oh my God, this was actually really accidental.
No, it's great. A little bit longer and you got little bangs going on.
Do you like it? I think I look a bit like a French techno raver, don't you think?
No, I do look a little pin-uppy.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe that's just the Hawaiian shirt.
Well, it's not hurting.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Certainly not hurting.
So, I wanted to basically get to know more about you and talk everything powerlifting, what you love about it, what you dislike about it, how it's changed over the years, what got you into it, so many questions, how did you create the most amazing gym that I've ever been to that is just in the middle of a small town in Boston how do we get you on the map? How do more people go there?
I mean, that's a whole lot of questions.
So many questions, I know, I'm sorry. This is so exciting.
Where do you want me to start?
So let's start from the beginning, because obviously anyone listening to this might know you, might not know you.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. So maybe if you want to introduce yourself, say a little bit about your history, what you do.
So obviously I'm Murph, but if you have to Google me, it's C.J.Murphy. I am the owner of Total Performance Sports in Malden, Mass. We are Boston's strongest. I am the creator of the TPS method and the TPS method for powerlifting, which are programming systems. And they're in use all over the world by a ton of people on my website, tpsmethod.com, and also in-house in the building. I've been a sponsored member of the team at elitefts.com for about 2 decades, maybe more, I'm not sure, about 20 years. I was a sponsored lifter with Elite FTS before my body fell apart, and now I just kind of tell other people how to do it. But I've had a little bit of success, and I've had a lot of people with much bigger shoulders allow me to climb on them on the way up to get where I am. And I like to say that everything I know was taught to me by somebody else. So it's not that you want to remember where you came from, I think, and how you got to be in a position. So how did the gym start? Let's see. Or how did we get in powerlifting? Which one?
How did you? Firstly, I just want to say that I think it's very. I can't even speak now, but I think it's very nice that you are so open about saying that other people have helped you get to where you are. Because I think nowadays, people are so quick to just be like, oh yeah, I came up with it, and not really kind of tag in the people that have helped along the way. And it's so true. I think no one gets there by themselves, right?
Yeah, if you've achieved any level of success in anything, it has to do with your own dedication and hard work, but it has to do with somebody else helping you along the way. And I was fortunate that, the people that put a hand out to me and helped form me were some of the best in the industry. Dr. Fred Hatfield was a close personal friend, my mentor. If you kids don't know who he is, look him up, Google him. He's the greatest of all time. Dave Tate invited me to be on the team about 20 years ago with the Elite FTS. If you don't know who Dave Tate is, just turn the fucking computer off now and, just go do something else. There's so many people that are the greats that have helped me along the way. That's probably the 2 most familiar people that people in the podcast will know. I could name a bunch of other ones that you may know. Mark Bodley Spud is a very, very good friend of mine, constant source of information. There's just so many people, I couldn't begin to name and thank them all, but you have to appreciate that there's people that have helped you. We pass on, and that's one of the mottos with the leaders: live, learn, and pass on. So, that's kind of when you asked me if I want to do this podcast. Of course I do. I'm passing on. You're a little bit younger than me by 30 years, and we pass on to the younger generation, and that's how you do things. That's what makes this sport. And when I say this sport, I should say this community of strength better, I think, than most other ones, because when I say the community of strength, I mean everybody: powerlifting, strongman, weightlifting, CrossFit, bodybuilding, everything. There's not really a lot of backbiting and infighting. I think we all tend to support each other, or at least the better ones do. Sure. So it's you have to help out. How did I start with powerlifting? I think as long as I can remember, I wanted to be the strongest guy in the world, and that stems back from watching the ABC Wide World of Sports. This is before there was internet and before there was cable TV. It was called network TV, and we only had 3 channels. And on the Wide World of Sports, you'd see Olympic weightlifting with the greats like Alexiev, or you'd see the first strongman contest with Franco Columbu running with a refrigerator on his back. You see stuff like that. In the 70s, as a little kid, 10 years old, and you're like, oh fuck, I want to do that shit. So and then Arnold comes out with Pump and Iron, and you watch that 1,000 times. And growing up with the 80s action stars, everybody was juiced out of their fucking tits and jacked, right? Everybody's they're jacked in all the 80s movies. Look at the pussies we got in movies now: skinny 140-pound twinks, superhero action stars. Get the fuck away from me, right? But so that's the kind of environment you grew up in, and I wanted to be the biggest, strongest, baddest motherfucker going. So I started lifting weights, and it just kind of went from there. And along the way, it was passed on that maybe you should compete. You're sort of strong, for at the local level. So you get into some powerlifting stuff, and then I discovered strongman at a competitive level, and I kind of went away from powerlifting and got balls deep into strongman. And then due to some catastrophic injuries, I could not do strongman competitions anymore. And I was starting to get pretty good, doing pretty well in them. But, so I went back to powerlifting because all my powerlifting friends are going to hate me, but powerlifting's way easier than strongman. Because powerlifting, you have to do something heavy once and then you get to rest. The strongman, you have to do it like 75 times in 90 seconds. So I went back to powerlifting and, coaching people. And who is that folding laundry in the back?
No, she's ruining it.
Who is it?
My mom.
Tell her I said hello. Where is she? Come on the camera.
Be in this. Oh, it's all.
Come on, Mom.
The first attempt, and it's all going wrong here.
Come on, Mom. Let's go. I want to meet her. You're bringing me home to meet your mother.
Yeah. So we can just hope that the powerlifters ignore your.
I'll fuck them if they can't take a joke.
Well, to be fair, I feel like I was never super into, to be honest, I like everything about powerlifting except doing bench. To me, it is so boring. And I know people, when I went to Conjugate, they were all about bench and to the blocks and with bands. And I was like, I really couldn't care. But then if you gave me this stone and you were like, just pick it up and throw it over something, I was like, yes, this I will do multiple times.
So the bench is super complicated, and I think if you're doing bench properly with, I would say, proper powerlifting competitive technique, it's the single most complicated thing you're going to do with the barbell. So if it's boring, you're probably not doing it the way we would coach. You know what I mean?
I just also didn't see the point. I was like, I don't want to I got boobs, nothing's gonna happen. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, but if you have boobs, that's a built-in two board, so you should be able to bench more. You're not getting the joke there, are you?
I am, but mine aren't very there's not really much there.
Well, I can spy you some of mine. I can spy you some of my man boobs.
Extra arch to get there. I haven't got, maybe in the States, where, a larger breast is probably still a thing.
It's not a thing in England?
No, not really. Probably not. Maybe since the late 90s, early 2000s, you know?
Well, you know what they say, right? Boys like boobs and men like butts.
We're definitely a butt country, I think, now.
Yeah, well, they're paying attention to this guy right here. Let's go back on to lifting.
Yes. Segue.
Anyway,
But yeah, so like, did you have like a moment where you just realized that like you just loved it more than like just wanting to be the world's strongest man?
oh, I think if I look at things in my life that, I take my son out of that because there's nothing that compares to how much I love my son, right? That's just the truth, right? Where is it again? It's right there, right? That's his little tiny hand. So you take that off the table, right? And if you just look at like virtually every relationship in your life, families, marriages, friends, and every other activity, and you look at, I don't want to say sacrifices, their choices, but you look at the things that you've given up voluntarily to try to be good at something that doesn't pay. You have to love that more than anything. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So I used to write a lot about trying to find balance between work and lifting and home life and training to be a competitive lifter. And I could never figure out how to find that balance. And then one day I realized there is no balance. If you want to be a champion, or if you want to aspire to be a champion, you have to have a laser-like focus on that one thing. And I don't know that there's any way to get that. You know, the fucking media was all over Tom Brady, not to talk about football and Tom Brady, but they were all over him right before the Super Bowl, saying that, he basically booted his wife and kids out, a week or 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. Of course he did. Of course he did. He's going to the fucking Super Bowl. He doesn't need to be listening to somebody complain and the kids running around the house and interrupting his sleep. So that's the mentality, right?
Yeah.
So do you love it? Was there a moment? I don't know if there was a moment, but I think it was kind of some, you're just like, oh shit, this is the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
More important than career, more important than work. And that's not healthy, but that's how it is.
Yeah. No, definitely. No, I just wanted, because sometimes you have like, I know for me in like weightlifting, it sounds really like a strange thing to say, but like I love barbells.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's something about a barbell that
Right.
like seeing one brings me joy.
Yeah.
And like
yeah.
sort of like picking it up in a way, and I'm just like, anything you want, I will do for you.
Yeah. And there's a saying in the Harley Davidson, the biker community. It's like a T-shirt thing. It's, if I have to explain, you wouldn't understand, right? It applies to this too. Like if you have to explain to somebody why you're doing this, they're not going to understand. So don't bother.
100%.
You do you.
That's true.
Yep.
Deep, so deep. Well, I'm glad. Just like I feel like there's so many people, and especially now, like I feel like the fitness world, and like I guess maybe it's getting here in England, but I think in America it's always been like a little bit more like you guys are a lot more sports orientated, like from a really young age, whereas like in England I think we sort of are a bit, but then we also have like a really huge drinking culture that like kind of pushes that to the side sometimes. But no, I think that like I was saying, like I think in the States you guys have like quite a big emphasis on sports, and so I think it's now, do you feel like now kind of more and more people are getting like the understanding, like having that same feeling? It's not just anymore of like going to like a 24-hour fitness, like. Yeah,
so I think it's, I see different things here in my facility, Total Performance Sports. We're in Malden. We have, half of the gym is dedicated to personal training, and it's mostly groups, and half of the gym is wide open. And the majority of people that train here are competitive lifters in one of the strength disciplines or multiples, with the other people that train in the main gym being more, I would say, people are a little bit more educated about their fitness. We don't have the meatheads walking in here out of like a Planet Fitness doing goofy, dumb shit. You've been here,
Yeah.
But with the personal training side, I think that what we see is people have come to the understanding, and it's exploded. The industry's exploded over the past, number of years, and which is unusual because there's so many businesses that open like this and then close right away. But that's a whole different subject. But people, I think, begin to understand the importance of exercise and strength training. And also, I think people are starting to understand that the medical community, particularly Western medicine and Americanized medicine with the HMOs and their doctors, they're just fucking lying to them. Doctors in our country, and not that I support socialized medicine and government medicine. I don't. But I also don't support the insurance company telling your doctor how you need to be treated. People are realizing that exercise and proper nutrition is medicine, right? Movement is what the fuck? My buddy just threw that at me. Movement is something. I forget what it was. A great quote. Movement is medicine, or movement is something. But people are realizing that the medical community is lying to them. That the doctors, you're going to go in and say, well, like this hurts right here, and then say take some Motrin, but they're not going to look you up and like stick a finger in your back and say, you know what, you're kind of bound up on this spot over here. Why don't we send you to a soft tissue practitioner and get you some kind of treatment on that, or send you to the PT that's going to do what the PT wants to do as opposed to doing ice and skim like the flow chart says. So I think we're having people realize that this is what their bodies need. Especially we have a generation of veal, which I just wrote an article about Elite for that about a month ago. Human veal. You have a generation of kids right now that, no offense towards the millennials, but the millennial generation, they grew up with everything is special and everybody gets a trophy, and a lot of them had no activity. They didn't play sports, so they're basically veal. They sat down and they did this, or they played video games, and now they're 25, 35 years old. They don't have an ounce of muscle on them, and they're like, shit, I got to start to exercise because my body's falling apart at 29, 30. So they're realizing these things. They're coming to us, which is great because we want to help them, right?
For sure.
But it's not their fault because they were raised differently than I was raised. When I was raised, you left the house, you ran around, you climbed trees, you rode your bicycle, you built ramps, you jumped your bicycle over stuff, over garbage cans, you fell off it, you broke your arm. You played sports, you played hockey, you got in a fight in hockey, you played baseball, somebody hit you in the head with a baseball, and coach told you to walk it off, right? Walk it off, right? Seriously. Now,
I know, I had the same thing.
Kid slides into home base and like bangs his knee up a little bit. Like, oh, yeah, he can't play sports for 3 weeks, but walk it off, dude. So it's a different culture now. And these younger kids, I say kids, but they're adults. They're kids to me. They were raised in this culture, and they don't realize that that's not the way to raise people. We need to raise our kids to be intelligent, to analyze the situation, make their own decisions, hear both sides or all sides of the story, and to be strong. Right? To be strong mentally and physically. I'm kind of all over the place, right?
I feel like, no. No, I'm saying like, I feel like it's good. I think that like the culture is changing, and then like, I think that when you said like with a teacher, like if I have to explain it, you don't understand. I think more and more people now are understanding, which is great. I feel like nowadays, like, anything involving a barbell is no longer like intimidating. I think more and more people are being like, oh, it's actually a great thing. It's not something to be scared of, and like get super into it and like really enjoying an element of some form of strength training, whatever kind of way you want to go, is actually like super empowering.
Yeah.
Rather than like your 24-hour fitness, like, oh, there's like, Smith machine and I'm just going to attempt to do a squat and like whatever, right? Like I think people now are understanding more like like just that feeling behind being like, actually, I'm not just going to go to a gym anymore, in terms of like, there's more goals. I guess maybe that's what I'm trying to say, is like more people get into it and suddenly like, oh, there is powerlifting, there's CrossFit, there's Olympic weightlifting, there's, rather than it just now being like a mode of getting a bum.
Well, I mean, that's not a bad thing either.
That's not a bad thing.
Nobody ever wrote a song about a girl with a small ass.
This is true. But okay,
so it's funny with what you said there. Just want to kind of finish up.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me a question the other day about something that's popped up in fitness. I forget what it was, but it was something goofy, like some exercise modality that they saw in an infomercial or something. And had you asked me the question 15 years ago, I would have went on a rampage about that's fucking stupid and blah blah blah. And then they asked me, what do you think of it? I'm like, you know what I think? I think anything that gets people up off their asses and makes them do something. It was that tonal thing, the tonal screen with the. Have you seen that? TONAL. It's like a giant TV with handles attached to it, and it's got some kind of mechanical magnetic weight or something built inside. They're asking me, look it up. It's kind of interesting, but they're asking me. I'm like, anything that gets somebody up off their ass to be more physical is great, because at some point they're going to say this isn't enough, and they're going to come to us. I'll go to someone else. But so it's great. We want to encourage that and not discourage it.
For sure. Okay, So let's pick a topic. So would you rather like go down the rabbit hole of like strongman, because I love strongman stuff, and I
Whatever you want. This is your show.
Know about strongman than powerlifting, because I think powerlifting is kind of like it's getting more mainstream. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Actually, I feel like strongman too, because now like I know like Eddie Hall, like loads of
Strongman's pretty mainstream.
yeah, it's getting there, isn't it?
Well, everybody knows what strongman is. If you say I compete in strongman, they say like, do you pull airplanes with your teeth? Well, maybe not airplanes with my teeth, but yeah, that. And if you say powerlifting, they go, oh, like on the Olympics. Like, nope, not like on the Olympics, right? So powerlifting is getting more mainstream, but the thing with powerlifting is if you compete in it, it's awesome. But and I coach it, but like if I have to go to a meet to watch the meet, I'm bored out of it, right? It's the most boring thing in the world to watch. It's painful.
Oh, I love watching it.
I watch 100 people squat, and then 100 people come out and bench, and then 100 people come out and deadlift. Ah, it's not a spectator sport.
I like it. I feel like watching them lift is like so inspiring, because I'm just like, wow, one day.
Yeah, you can do it today. You do one, just do one. Nobody cares. That's the beautiful thing about the strength sports. You can walk up there with your first meet with, 135 pounds or 57 kilos or whatever the fuck you people call it on that side of the world, right? And I don't even know, is that right? No,
you're probably not far off it. I'm not the greatest at math.
That's right, but anyway, yeah. So and this person next to you might have, person at the end of the flight might have, 350 kilos on the bar, and they're going to cheer just as loud for you.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? That's the different thing about the strength sports.
For sure.
You go to like a little league game and everybody's heckling each other or whatever, or a kids football match, right? They're jabbering and jarring at each other and chirping. You don't really have that.
No.
Which is great. It's a super supportive community.
Yeah, it is actually really great. That is something I really enjoy about it. But so how old were you when you first did your first competition? And like, did you have a coach, or did someone just be like, hey, you're pretty strong? Like,
nobody had a coach. My first competition I was signed up for was in, it was ADFPA, American Drug Free Powerlifting Association. And it was in White Plains, New York. And I don't remember what year it was, but it was in the 80s. And my first competition got canceled because of a blizzard.
Amazing.
Huh?
I said amazing.
Yeah, I think it was like 89. But the ADFPA ended up turning into the USAPL. But that's how long ago it was. It was pre-USAPL. But I ended up not doing that one. And then I did one soon after that. I don't remember when it was. It was, I don't know, sometime after that. Around that time, 91, 92, 90, I don't know. 93.
Okay, so like talk to that then, because like nowadays, like obviously like you're on social media and like you can see that like everyone who's anyone who hasn't even started really like has a coach in some form, like
a camera and a set of $200 knee sleeves and a set of $300 shoes, and this and that, and they squat 100 pounds.
Exactly.
It's an idea.
What was
Get a better coach. Get a better coach, throw the equipment away, and learn how to fucking lift from a highly qualified coach, not some kid that's got a big total on Instagram. Get a real fucking coach.
Yeah, agreed. But so what was that? So like how, like what was that kind of like then? You said that like no one had a coach. So like,
well, so you train with crew.
Programming, like all of it.
Coaches didn't exist. They didn't exist. The personal training industry didn't really even exist then. I'm one of the first personal trainers around this area. There weren't that many. There was an industry that only existed like in Hollywood and in Beverly Hills. It wasn't a real thing. Mike Boyle kind of invented the whole field of coaching and personal training. He should be credited with that. He's one of the first ones, like the strength coach field. He's not the first one, but he's up there. He really brought it mainstream, But so how did it work? Like I went to Gold's Gym in Everett, which was a super hardcore powerlifting and bodybuilding gym in the Boston area. And I hooked up with a crew of guys there, some local legends. Some of them competed at the national, international level with huge success. And, it was just that annoying kid that just tagged along and be like, hey, help me out. Hey, help me out. And they helped you out, and if you wanted to do a meet, there weren't that many meets. Now, pre-COVID, there was a meet every weekend somewhere local, right? There's a million different federations. Back then, there weren't that many federations. And you look in the back of Powerlifting USA, which is what you do. We had to get a magazine made out of paper. Okay. So, and go in the back and look for meets that were within a 6 or 7 hour drive. Because if you were lucky, you would get one in Massachusetts. So the closest one that was attainable for me was this ADFPA meet in White Plains, New York. I think it was White Plains. But, I'm like, what's that? 5-hour drive, 4-hour drive? Okay, fuck it, I'll do it. It wasn't like it is today.
Yeah.
And you train for it for a long time. And, back then the training it was pretty much straight linear periodization. So, you're going to do a month of 8s, and then you're going to do a month of 5s, and you do a month of 3s, and then before the meet, we'll start doing some doubles and triples, and we'll back you off and take 2 weeks off before the meet. And you hear that, and you're like, taking 2 weeks off before the meet. That's fucking insane. But it worked. These kids now, they don't understand that you have to deload before the meet, and they don't understand that your nervous system is so fried after a meet. If you actually competed, if you just went up there and took token numbers and walked through your first, second, and third attempts, right, and you can go to the gym and train the following Monday, you really didn't compete. You just lifted, but you didn't challenge yourself. And if you really do a competition, you need 3, 4, 5, 6 days off before you go back to the gym. You know what I mean? So you look at, like, can you see it in the camera? Like, does that see how that eye's all red?
Yeah.
Okay. That's because I blew both eyeballs out. They both went completely red. Okay. They were red for about 2 weeks. And like that little bit in that corner of the eye and on this corner of the eye, it never came back. So I competed at that meet. I didn't just lift. You follow me?
Yeah.
Like if you do a third attempt squat and you don't squirt blood out of your nose, you kind of sandbagging it.
I mean, I love this like mentality. I feel like that's just not, I don't know, actually, like, is that even still there anymore? Like in London, actually, like,
it's in the WPOs. You'll see it at the WPO level.
Because we don't have, like, I mean, Olympic weightlifting has just massively come up in London in the last maybe like year and a half, like 2 years. Like, it really was not on the map at all. And actually, like, powerlifting is still really quite niche. And I'm sure, like, you can find, I've tried to assist in hosting some of them because there's so little of them, right? And I just like all elements of the strength community. But so I would say, like, that's not something you necessarily, or at least I don't see often.
Well, so powerlifting used to be like it was cops and criminals, right? So it's like the dregs of society competing in powerlifting. Savages, you know what I mean? And, they used to say you could judge a powerlifter by his dimensions, right? So you see somebody walking down the street, they're a powerlifter. Doesn't matter if they're 5'4" or 6'9", Today it's different. The sport's evolved, which is not a bad thing because now that keeps me in business, right? But now strength sports are open to anybody. Strongman, I created the novice class with North American Strongman Mass, I don't know, 20 years ago. 18 years ago, I created the novice division. They said, like, what is that? I'm like, I think it would be cool if we had a division like in boxing where somebody with no experience could come in and try the sport with lighter weights and see if they want to like it. That could feed us and help us grow the sport, right? So they're like, I don't know about that. I said, well, let me do it for one show. Well, we did it for one show, and novice division took off all over the country. And it was great because when I started novice division, it was one and done. You only compete novice once. Now there's people, they changed the rules so you can compete in novice for the rest of your life. Like if you don't win, I don't know if they changed that rule, but they kind of watered down the novice. But powerlifting is like that too, where it's starting to go a little bit mainstream and people are seeing that they want to test themselves. Like I said, like the millennials, they reveal and then they start lifting and they want to test themselves. That's great, right? That's awesome. But so now powerlifting is, you might go to a meet and the first 50 lifters you see are squatting 120 pounds. You know what I mean? But who cares? Because that's all they can do and they're new and that's awesome. Maybe next year they're going to be squatting 240. Yeah. And the year after that, 315. So it's nobody cares how much you lift or how little you lift. We just want you to lift. But back then when I started, like, the guys I trained with are like, what do you squat? Like, I don't know what it was, 455, whatever. Well, you're not doing a meet yet, you'll embarrass us. You know what I mean? It's not enough. I'm like, okay. So I had to train for a while and they were like, okay, you can do a meet in 2 or 3 months. So it's different now, Well, you can't tell people you train without crew, you're not strong enough. All right.
I mean, you can. I feel like, especially like Olympic weightlifting, I feel like my coach has numerous times just got out like the chart of being like, can you hit these? Can you beat these? You're not strong enough yet, so you can't compete. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, well, there's that attitude too. And I think I like to get people to compete no matter how strong they are, because what you learn, and you can back this up, what you learn every time you compete, you learn something. Right? And if you do a meet when you first start, you've been training 3 months, 6 months, we just bring you to a meet and we just let you lift what you're able to lift, right? And you get that first meet jitters out. because everybody's nervous at their first meet. Some people are nervous every meet. Yeah, I don't get nervous. I fall asleep between attempts, and then I have to wake up and get mad. No, it's just that's just my personality. I don't get nervous. I'm not you know me. I'm not really a nervous guy.
No.
You know? No. So, but that's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's people that's they thrive in. So, you get that first meet jitters out of the way, and every time you compete, you learn something, which is awesome. You may learn something about yourself, right? About your makeup. You may learn that you're tougher than you think you are mentally, or you may learn that, you know what, my mental strength wasn't there today. You may learn like, okay, I have to time my warm-ups different, or whatever it is, right? But you learn something. And I think anytime we can do something and learn from it, that's a win.
100%.
So
yeah, I actively push myself to compete because it freaks me out so much. Like, I get a weird joy in how anxious and stressed out I get about the whole process.
cool.
Like, I think deep down, like, I enjoy it, but the entire day, from like the minute I wake up, like to the weigh-in, to the end of it, like the whole time I'm like, I hate this is the worst, I'm never doing this again. And the minute I finish my last lift, I'm like, so when's the next one?
Right. Yeah, so actually, my last meet I bombed at, which is the first time I ever bombed, but it was bench only. But a couple of years ago, my hip was so bad I couldn't even bench an empty bar, and I was jacked up. But then it was starting to get a little better. I started benching again, and I decided, like, I'm going to do a bench only meet. And I was a little embarrassed to do it because, you know, I think I opened with like 315, you know, and that's not good. That's not good. But I needed to do it because I needed to compete, right? And it just kind of goes back to the crew. My old crew would be like, you can't compete, you'll embarrass us. Do you know what I mean? With 315 bench. I'm like, couldn't bench an empty bar a year ago. I need to do this for my mental state. I need to get up there and train for something and achieve it, right? And you know, the funny thing is, I got up there, and a lot of people there knew me, and they're like, nobody said he's only benching 315. You know what I mean? Nobody. They clapped, you know. Whereas if that was, I think, a different community outside the strength sports, that it probably would have been a different thing, you know.
Yeah.
And then I did a meet after that, and I bombed. But I learned something about myself as I let too many things get in my head in the warm-up room, and you know, I get a little bit too overstimulated, and that's too jacked up. And so that was a learning experience too. But competing is I think for some people necessary. You know what I mean? Because the training with no point is boring, right? So
yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Like, there's such a, and I try and like kind of establish this with like a lot of the people that I coach and like even my classes. I was like, you know, I think no, and I hate to sound like one of those self-help books, but like knowing your why, kind of like,
it's a good book.
It is actually a very good book. I'm currently reading it. I was like, so many things to think about.
Yeah.
But you know, like that, you know, especially like through the lockdown and stuff, like I've done that a lot of the time. And you know, with weightlifting, like you said, like, you know, you've had injuries, right? And it's like I've basically been almost semi out with a hip in, like a painful hip for the last year, right? And you get to, and I was just like, oh, you know, like it just, you're grinding away, and like you get to a point where you're like, okay, why am I doing this, right? And I was like, and I try and always kind of like emphasize that in like anyone that I'm coaching as well, to be like, oh, you need to remind yourself, like, what is the purpose, right? Like, are you doing this because you really enjoy it and you want to have longevity, like in the training style? And if that is the case, then like go lighter and learn how to do it properly. And maybe it takes you a little bit longer, but you're going to do it. You're not going to be injured. You know, you're going to work through X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you know, on the other hand, if you're like, okay, well, like all I want to do is compete and I need to like really push and like max out, then I'm like, okay, well, you know, that's the other side of it too. But the same thing with competing, I always try and say to everyone, I was like, you know, actually, like, you get an award for the fact that you like had the balls to show up and do it. I was like, that's, like you said, even if it's like an empty bar, the point is you turned up and you did something that only maybe 25 people out of however many are in the room.
There's nobody in the peanut gallery that can say a fucking word to you because they're sitting on their asses. They're not up on the platform.
100%. So no, I completely get it, like with what you're saying. It's like, I think I am the same way, that like I don't necessarily train anymore to be like, I mean, I do have goals in weightlifting, but like due to having injuries, I think that like they're a little bit unrealistic now, just because I'm older, and maybe I should have done more rehab a year ago, and maybe I'd be a bit closer. But hey, how you live and you learn, right? Here we go.
Love that. I'm older. I have weight belts older than you.
Okay, like, in terms of like divisions, right? Like I would have like,
I'm only having a little fun.
I would have loved to have like got to somewhere before I hit like the masters category, which like bums me out that at like 35 you're a masters. But like I've got a year left, but I'm like, okay.
Are you 35?
I'm 34, yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's the cheeks.
I thought you were like 25.
No, but thanks so much.
Okay, whatever.
Um,
Anyway. I just assume anybody that's not my age is
like
25.
thrown me.
Huh?
No, I said now you've like thrown me off. Now I forgot what I was saying.
You're talking about competing and whether they compete to compete or compete for a different reason. And
oh yeah, exactly. So as like, I had like my own goals for weightlifting, and I think that like I just did a virtual one, which was like my first ever virtual one, because why would you do it virtually? And like same as you said, like I knew I wasn't going to hit the numbers I wanted, and actually I did hit the numbers I wanted to hit. I didn't PB by any means, but I was like, okay, you're coming out of an injury, like just taking part to remind yourself of like.
Yeah, but you did set a PR because that was an injury PR.
Yeah, I guess.
There's a difference.
This is true.
There is.
Mm.
That's just my opinion.
Like I think, but again, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because like when you've been doing it for so long, every time you compete, like you just want that 1 extra kilo or like pound in your case.
Yeah. Well, that would be 2.2 pounds.
I just want that like 1 extra, and then when it doesn't happen, it's just like I trained so hard, and like why is it not there yet?
That's funny. The second, I think one of the very first force production seminars Dave Tate did was at my facility. It was when he first started doing them. It wasn't the first seminar I'd been to, but it was the first one I hosted. And he started the seminar off just holding a 2.5 pound plate. And he just held it. And he didn't say a word for what seemed like an eternity. It was probably 30 seconds, right? Because you have a speaker up in front of you. And my original place was only 900 square feet. We got it packed with like 50 people. So that was a lot of people in that small of a room. And he was just standing there holding a 2.5 pound plate. And he's just not saying a word. And I bet you wonder why I'm holding this up. And everybody's like, well, yeah. He goes, because an elite level lifter will train all year to get one of these on each side of the bar. And these kids couldn't get it. They couldn't get it, right? Because when you first start training, you're banging out 25 pounds and 40 pound PRs. And he's explaining to them like, you'll train all year for 5 pound PR, and it's true if you're at a certain level. Yeah. And they don't get it, especially the younger generations now, they want everything right away. Like my son's generation, he's 15. They've just grown up in an era where if you want a cheeseburger, it'll be at your house in 30 minutes or less, right? Or anything. You basically order anything online and Amazon will deliver it to you pretty fucking quick, right?
Yeah.
Not like when I was a kid, you ordered something, you had to wait 6 to 8 weeks and you walked around by the mailbox waiting for it and it wasn't there, so they're like that now with their expectations.
Mm.
I always try to teach people to have realistic expectations. Not set the bar low, but set your, especially with regular clients, they come in and somebody will come in, it's not even the strength world, but they sign up for one of our programs for adult fitness. And they come in and they're 35 years old and they're 43% body fat, and they're like, well, what do you want? Like, I want abs in 8 weeks. I'm like, you're in the wrong place. You better go to a plastic surgeon with a huge fucking vacuum because that ain't going to happen.
Sure.
So how long did it take you to put this weight on them? They get offended, right? Well, I was in high school. I was probably 110 pounds. And now you're fucking 290 at 43% body fat. So how long did it take you to put that weight on? 20 years. Well, it ain't coming off in 8 weeks. Be realistic, right? Be fucking realistic. It's going to take you 2 or 3 years to get that weight off safely and healthily.
Yeah.
We'll drop 100 pounds. It's going to take you 2 years. Got to do it slow. And by the other token, like the younger kids and the younger generation, they see the lifts. And especially looking at social media, you'll see people do stuff on social media and they don't realize that half of that shit is staged. And they only put up the successes. They don't put up the failures. And you'd be surprised how many people use fake weights. Just saying. I know some. Not saying who they are, but I know some.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I would have
Oh.
never thought that.
Really? You see a guy repping 6 plates on each side of the bar on the bench like this, right? And then they put the bar down and there's not really a lot of noise and the bar's not bending and flexing. Come on.
I just don't even think I pay attention enough to care.
So
That's
there's a
the
lot.
problem. I think that like now, especially like with the last year, I feel like suddenly everyone's like a fitness guru. Or like
Oh, yeah.
everyone's, you know. And I think I don't even like pay. I know one person.
No names.
No names, no names. That is a an Olympic weightlifter and uses like large like 2.5 kilo bumper plates for like multiples and then snatches. So actually in total it's maybe like 40 kilos. But visually, like to someone that doesn't know, right? Or like hasn't bothered to look. And I'm like, so sneaky.
Yep. Yeah. That's true. There's a lot of, you know, everybody's a brand, right?
Oh, definitely.
So, you know, I don't really put too much of my lifting up there because it's not impressive. You know what I mean? It's just not impressive.
To me.
Huh?
I said it would be impressive to me.
Oh, no, but it's just not. You know, I train different than I used to. I don't train to compete anymore. I'm, you know, finishing up rehabbing a couple of injuries, and you know, I haven't taken a heavy bench in a long time. I haven't benched over 300 pounds in, I don't know, a long time, year and a half, 2 years. I don't know.
So like obviously like you like love like the sport of strength training and like powerlifting, and obviously like you have the gym, which is like one of my favorite places. Can I just tell you? As you probably know, it's like my number one destination whenever I come to Boston.
Love hearing that. Never gets old.
Like the thing that I like come for the most is just to come and see you guys. And
you get free tickets to Bruiser shows when you come too.
This is so
right.
True. Yeah, this is true. But you see, now you like segue my trail of thought, and I was like, what was I trying to get a point about how much I love?
My training's boring. I haven't benched over 300 pounds in a long time.
So yeah, okay, yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it. But yeah, so obviously like you're super passionate about like what you do. You have the gym. Like, how does it feel like when you are injured or you haven't been like up to par or peak with your training? Like, don't you find that hard then being in a gym environment and like helping other people? Like, don't you just get that urge where you're like, I just want to be doing this, but I can't? Or
yeah.
And like, how do you deal with that? Because I feel like that's why it's taken me so long to rehab my hip, because the thought of not being able to snatch like really upset me.
Well, it's a multi-fold question, I think, but you know, if you have passion for this, then, you know, when I got really banged up and I couldn't do anything, I decided to put most of my efforts into coaching and also judging meets, because a lot of people don't know we judge meets, we don't get paid, right? The judges at the meets don't get paid. And people complain about the fucking judges. You know what? You go fuck yourself. Okay. Everybody that's listening here that complains about a judge, fuck you and the horse you fucking rode in on, you piece of shit. We do that because we love it, because we give back to the sport. And if you want to complain because you squatted fucking high and I gave you a red light and then you complained about it, or if your ass came off the bench, go fuck yourself. Watch the video. Okay. Don't listen to your crew pumping your ass up with your high squats on Instagram, because you know who the fuck I'm talking about. There's a bunch of you. Somebody squats 16 inches fucking high on Instagram. They go to a meet. They squatted this high, right? They barely bent their knees. 2 judges give them red lights, and the front judge gives them a fucking white light. The front judge doesn't. Oh, I'm all jacked up. Hold on. But they complain about the judging, right? Don't complain about the judges. We do that because we love the sport. We want to give back, right? So that was one of the ways that I stayed into the sport. I wrote programs for people that were wildly successful, if I must say so. And you judge, right? That's what I could do to contribute, right? So now maybe I can get back into bench only. I don't know, but that's how I handled it. So, you know, I take a lot of what I do from martial arts and things like that. And it's, you know, you want to make the student better than you, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I want somebody that I coach to lift way more than I ever did. I want them better than me. So that's how I worked it out in my mind, that I couldn't do these things anymore, you know? But now I'm trying to, you know, talking to my best friend today, I kind of got to find something else to compete in. So I think we're looking at we're looking into police motorcycle contests. I don't know if you know what those are, but you might want to look them up on YouTube. Motorcycle rodeos. It's pretty fun, cool, and that might be my next thing I can compete in, because you can do that till you're 100. You don't have to lift anything. You just have to go like this, you know. But you got to compete in something, so I have to find something to compete at.
100%. Yeah, you've got to like fill the hole somewhere, right? Like,
yeah.
You've got to like find something else.
Yep.
Like,
there's something missing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's something in the brain, isn't there, where you're just kind of like.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does actually. I think like on a whole, what we've established is that like once it's in there, like it's in there, and it never goes away. And
never goes away.
You'll find a way somehow to be involved, and it doesn't necessarily. Would you agree that you would say that sometimes like it's not necessarily even the competing in the powerlifting; it's the competing on the whole.
Well, so with strength sports are one of my first loves and my most passionate loves. So I need to be involved in them somehow. I need to be involved, whether that's as a coach, as a judge, or as people on your side say the referee, right? If that's all I can do, that's awesome, right? If I can't compete, I'll still stay involved. But then there's the secondary part where there's that need to compete, and so I don't know what I can compete in. Excuse me. But like I said, I had the skills when before I retired. I had a lovely motorcycle at work, and they paid me to ride it around, and they trained me on how to ride it. So now that I'm retired, I think I could probably sharpen those skills back up and compete at something.
Amazing. I love it.
Even if you don't win, I'm going there to compete against myself. So if I do one, set the bar, and the first run is 35 seconds, and my best run of the day is 32. I go to the next show, and maybe I can do a 29.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I love it. I love that you found something else. You got something.
I'm gonna Google it and send you a link.
Okay. So like, would you like, so now with the gym, so like, hopefully if like anyone listening will maybe be more interested and go and look up and Google the gym. And if not, I've got pictures on my Instagram. So that your Instagram handle is just at TPS Malden, right?
So we have two. At TPS Malden is technically the gym's Instagram handle, but it's mine, right? So I don't have a personal one, and I can't be bothered. So that's the gym's one. So you might see stuff about me, and there's going to be 50% stuff about me, 50% stuff about the gym, right?
Yeah.
And from a marketing standpoint, that's better, I think, because the experts say you want to let people know that you're not a mega corporation, just a dude or just a chick, and you're just a small business, right? So it's my, TPS Malden is my Instagram. But we have an Instagram for TPS Method, which is for the program. So we have a website, tpsmethod.com. You guys can all check it out. There's a free 1-week trial. It's the most complete resource on the internet. It's got hours and hours and hours of video on coaching, and a couple of years worth of programming on it right now, in anything you can imagine, powerlifting and general fitness. So there's two different Instagram profiles, but the TPS Method one, I just don't check it that often as I should.
Yeah. So, I mean, like programming, I feel is like a whole nother realm of like conversation.
Mm-hmm. We can do this again.
No, I mean, like it's still going. So like, whatever. I'm like,
okay.
I'm gonna wait till it kicks me off, and then I'm just gonna like call you back.
All right.
Keep going. So with how have you come to now have the program that you provide? Like, was there like major influences along the way? Like, was there anyone in particular? Did you just try like loads of different methods to get to where you were?
So a lot of reading, because that's how we learned in my day. There was, it's not being like douchey, like we didn't have internet. You got to read books. For sure. You got to track books down. You have to ask the library if they could order this book because they didn't have it. It's not the stuff about this. It's not in bookstores. It may be now, but it wasn't in the 80s. So a lot of reading, and then a lot of trying to seek out information And then, programming, if any coach that writes a program, people don't understand that you're a guinea pig, right? You're my guinea pig. People don't know it. Like, I'm writing a program. And so I found some methods of programming that just don't work. And I found some that work really good and some that work pretty good. But if I have the one that works pretty good and I don't do some guinea pig stuff to it and try some different things and see how that works, and if I find that, oh shit, that worked really good, we're going to keep that. So you want to be like Bruce Lee with JKD, right? The way of no waste. You take what works, you throw away what doesn't.
For sure.
You familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Bruce Lee's martial arts style is Jeet Kune Do. It's the way of no waste, right?
Yeah,
so
my dad is a massive martial arts fan, so I grew up on all of that.
yeah, so you take the base of the system is you look at, a certain style of karate, you take what works and throw away what doesn't. You take something from just jiu-jitsu, take what works. And programming, or good programming, is the same, right? But so I train predominantly West Side Conjugate, the majority of the vast majority, right? And I really believe that that's the best way to train. But if you could say what's the best way to train, West Side Based Conjugate program is going to be the best way to train for almost anything. And I'll say that, right? The problem with conjugate training is people fuck it up because they don't understand it, right? So like back in the day, people would read Powerlifting USA, and Louis would put out a conjugate workout because that's what they did at West Side that day. And then people would, run that program for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. It's like, no, bro, that was one fucking day. And everybody at West Side didn't do that workout. They did the main movement, but they did movements that suited their weaknesses. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. People don't really know how to program conjugate for themselves a lot. And there's a lot too. There's a lot of smart coaches that know how to write a conjugate program. But so when you take that out, and then if you want to train a group with West Side Conjugate, you need a shitload of equipment, right? Mm. We would have up to 24 people in a class, right? So I have 6 coaches, 24 people, squatting, right? So you get 6 people squat at the same time. I'm going 24 people. I need 6 monoliths, right? I don't have 6 monoliths. I don't have the space for it. Who does?
Yeah.
Well, maybe out in the Midwest in this country, you could have the space where, my electric bill is what some of my buddies pay for rent and electric for their gyms.
Yeah.
I can, the electric bill is $3,500 a month. So it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Plus it's high. So programming, like, we found different things that work and different things that don't. So, linear periodization always works, right? If you do it right, and it's easy, but it's boring and nobody wants to do it, right? So the thing you get when you're training people, and you have to keep them engaged, right? You got to keep them engaged. And then, so you can't say, what are we doing? We're doing 8s for a month. Block periodization always works, but it's fucking boring, but it works, right? Conjugate, I think, is better because you could conceivably be doing something different every week. But so my program, TPS method, my programming is conjugate programming. It's not West Side Conjugate programming. Okay. So we always work limit strength. We always have a secondary accessory exercise, and then we do repetition method. And repetition method could be, who knows, right? We do dynamic work, but we don't do dynamic work in the same fashion that West Side does it for powerlifting, right? So we address limit strength, we address, submaximal strength, we address speed, explosion, we address everything in the program. So it makes it a conjugate program.
Yeah.
But people that don't know the difference will look at it and that's not conjugate. There's no bands, there's no chains. Yeah, that's not what it means. Okay, so why don't you just keep that mouth shut and let people think you're stupid instead of open it and confirming, right? But also, like, the way I've come up with programming now is we've tried percentages, right? Because weightlifting is heavy on percentages, right? So if you have to do, if you're going to do 97.5 for 2 singles today and you miss, how do you feel?
I cried.
Feel.
I have a lot of crying sessions.
Okay. Right. So I don't like percentage-based training.
I've had such a conversation about this, like, recently, because and obviously, like, feel free to, like, input how you feel about it, but, like, I feel like percentage-based training is good for people who understand. So
let me get there. I guarantee you I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
Write down what you were saying, right? So I don't like percentage-based training because I'm in the business of making people leave here feeling good while giving results, right?
Okay.
You train people, right? So I stole this from J.L. Holdsworth, director, my director of operations, my head strength coach. J.L. named his guy director of sweating and smiles because he wants everybody to leave sweating with a big smile on their face. That's primary goal number one, right? So if I write a program where they're taking 95% for 3 doubles today and they miss 90 and they go to 95%, they're going to be fucking bullshit. They're not going to be happy. It's going to eat at them and they're going to be frustrated, right? It's not what we're here for. Even with my athletes, if I have an athlete on a program and they're supposed to take 95% today and they're just not feeling it today, it's going to mess with their head, especially going up to a competition. Okay. They're going to fail. You don't fail in training. You don't fail. You can't miss lifts. So that's why percentage-based training sucks.
Okay.
Yes, but I know sometimes there's a value in missing a lift. I get that.
No, not even that. Not at all. What I was going to say is like, would you say that like you take that stance between, so I'm assuming that you do more like RPE type?
No, so I'm getting there.
Okay, sorry. So what I've personally found is that, especially with like, and I'm going to base it on the structure of like a new person and like someone that's maybe already been lifting for a year or so. Like, have you not found that like a lot of people don't actually like, well, again, that goes down to like RPE, right? But it's like, I've found that like most people don't really truly know like their 8 or 9 in terms.
But you do.
Yeah,
if you're a halfway decent coach, you know when somebody's working at about an 8 or about a 9, right?
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and finish with this because you're gonna like it.
Okay, good.
Guarantee you're gonna like it. It's gonna make a light bulb go off.
Okay.
And I just did a lengthy article about what we're talking about now for onit.com. The Joe Rogan sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I just did a lengthy article about this, explaining it. So RPE training, we tried percentage-based only training with people, right? I've tried, and now if I'm writing a program for somebody to do on their own, it's probably going to look like a West Side Conjugate program, if the mentality goes with it, right? So RPE-based training, right? So percentage-based training works good with people that have to wrap their head around a number. I know the number I need to hit today, right? Excuse me, RPE-based training does not work good with those people. RPE training is awesome and it sucks. But it's awesome and it sucks for different reasons, right? So it's awesome because it's auto-regulatory if you run it properly. But it sucks because everything's an Insta-6, right? I've looked at people on Instagram that have pulled the deadlift, ground it, their ass popped up, they get to the top and it fell out of their hand and they write RPE 6. I'm like, bro, that was like a 15. You know what I mean? I see it in the gym all the time. So people overshoot or undershoot the RPE all the time. So when we ran RPE-based programs, only RPE-based, what we found is the coaches really had to fucking pay attention and really be good coaches to say, no, that was an 8, you're done. Or know the person, right? Because if you tell somebody that they're supposed to be at a 9 today and they think it was a 9, but it was really a 5, right? Because they're either new or they're just fucking pussies and they don't want to work hard. You load a little bit more weight on there, they're going to fail, right? So you're going to say, well, I don't think you've worked up to the potential today, but I'm not going to let you lift anymore because you've already talked yourself out of lifting more weight. You go negative on them with the sales, right? Hey, I want to sign up for your program. I don't think it's for you. I don't have any spots open. You seem good. So it's the same thing, right? You just mind fucking people to be successful, right? I mean, that's all this is. You figure out how to talk to whoever you're training and get the best out of them. Not lie to them, but get the best out of them, right? So RPE has its ups and downs. The predominant down is that people don't gauge the RPE correctly. But the other thing is people that need numbers in their program don't do well on RPE. Just like those same people that need numbers in their program don't do well on a conjugate program, West Side Conjugate program, because they need to know what they want to have to hit that day instead of saying I'm going to hit a 1 rep max on a box squat with 2 chains. They need to have a number. They can't wrap their head around, right? And I've seen this 1,000 times. So I kind of blended RPE and percentage into one system, okay? And Sean, the editor at Onit's a very good friend of mine, wanted me to write this up in an article and explain it. And it's hard to explain because I don't even know if I did a good job of it. And I think I did, but the magic is kind of making sure that the RPE and the percentage work together. And about 95% of the time with my programs, if I say this is an RPE 7 and it's 77.5% by this many reps, people like, dude, that's right on. How do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. I just been doing it, and we tweak it and we figure out how it works, right? So I use Tushia's RPE chart, and I use Prelipin's chart, okay, to guess my optimum. It's a guess too. I'm guessing at the optimum number of sets and reps because Prelipin's chart was based for weightlifters. How does it apply to average fitness? How does it apply to strongmen? How does it apply to powerlifting? Nobody knows. So it's a guideline, right? So I use a combination of those two, and we will assign a percentage and an RPE, okay? We tell them the RPE is the driver. That's the most important thing. And the percentage can be adjusted up 2.5 to 5%. So if you're supposed to hit something at a 9, which means you have 1 to 2 reps left in the tank, and you hit it, and it didn't, you think you could have done 3 or 4, go up 2.5%. You got another set in, that felt like a 9, or it didn't feel like a 9, go up another 2.5%, but you can't go up more than 5. Same token goes if you're warming up and you're a 500-pound squatter and 135 feels like the whole world. The earth is on my back. Ugh. Keep warming up, but maybe we use a lower percentage today. The RPE is the driver, right? So if we have to lower the weight by more than 10%, you're going home because you haven't recovered from something for some reason, right? So there's no point in doing that. Or maybe you're just going to do accessory work today, but there's no point. If you're supposed to squat 500 pounds today and you can barely squat 400, something's up, right? And doing the work is not going to do any good. It's not going to do any good, right? So what we found is that this method works for everyone. People that need a percentage, people that don't like percentages, they like RPEs. And we've also found a way to work in max training, similar to the West Side within a max. We do that on secondary work. So we let people jack up and fucking go for max, but it's going to be an 8-rep max, a 6-rep max, or maybe a 5-rep max to a 3-rep max on an accessory exercise. So maybe they bench press today with chains, and they're going to work up and do a close grip floor press for a 5-rep max. So it lets the savage come out and smash the weight, right? But it also keeps a leash on you. And it's all auto-regulatory the way I program it, because, if we're doing, in an intensity cycle, that we're doing, 85% for 5 doubles, and then the next week we're doing 90% for 3 doubles, and the week after that we're doing 3 singles with 95%. They're certainly not hitting a 3-rep max after that, right? They're going to do it on a more forgiving exercise for a higher amount of reps that taxes the muscles more than the nervous system to account for recovery. So the kind of magic in putting that program together is knowing, I don't know how to get it out of here to you. Do you know what I mean? But when you look at it, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, I see why he did that now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you have to look at the whole program. You can't just look at one day.
Yeah.
You look at a couple of weeks and say, oh, okay.
And so how long, like when you oh my God, I have so many questions now about your programming. But like, so when you generally program for like one of your athletes, like, do you do it in like a 6-week cycle? Do you do it week by week? Like, how would you, when you're kind of doing all of this, how would you?
We release the programming in 8-week blocks, right? And we always have a goal, but it depends. So, if I'm programming for one person, I'll typically write out an 8-week template, but knowing where the end goal is. You know what I mean? So I know how far we are out from the competition with what we need to do. But you can't write a program for much beyond 8 weeks because everything changes. And you might write a program for 8 weeks and then week 4, it's changed, right? So, you're going to lift them. Week 3, they weren't paying attention. They did something. And they jacked up their triceps. So now they can't do this exercise, this exercise, this exercise. So the whole program I wrote is now garbage. It's a waste of time. So I typically will write in 8-week blocks, knowing what the big picture is. So knowing where I have to lead up to at the end. But it also has to be open for suggestion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Open for change. And that's another problem when you get people, excuse me.
Bless you.
Apologize, thank you. You'll get people, you're training them and you write an exercise down and, let's say I write down glute ham raises with weight and I want you to do, 2 reps shy of failure, but you have to get at least 8 reps. And for some reason they can't do them with weight today, but they could last week. And you're like, well, fuck it. Let's just go do 45-degree back raises with a band, like a super light band. Well, no, but the paper says glute ham raises with weight. Yeah, but you can't do it, right? So don't worry about it. It's a fucking accessory exercise. Who cares? Go do leg curls. What's the difference? Right, you look at the big picture, right? You got to look at the big picture. So the people get hung up and you wrote that on the paper. So that must mean it's what was right. I'm like, no, I just, I picked an exercise that's going to help your weakness, but there's 30 other ones. Right?
Yeah.
So
if let's say for example, like someone listens to this and they're like, this guy sounds like an absolute legend, because obviously like you are. Let's be fair.
So I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said like, if someone's listening to this and they think that you're an absolute legend and they're like, oh, I want to do the TPS like programming. Like, who do you program for? Like every type of strength sport, or is it like predominantly powerlifting? Who's your kind of main?
So I don't particularly like to program for weightlifting, but I can. I'm a level 2 certified USA weightlifting coach. I had a weightlifting coach for years, right? Although I let that certification expire, but I still earned it, so I don't care. I'm just not giving them the money for it, I don't like programming for weightlifters because the way I program, to know if a program works, you have to stick with it for a year, period, right? And I don't program weightlifting the way most weightlifters program it. So they look at it, they're like, this isn't going to work. They do it for 3 weeks. Like, well, I haven't put on a 25-pound PR, so it doesn't work. So I'm not going to write a weightlifting program like everybody else's because I know that will work. I know mine will work better, right? So, the Americans lose the Olympics all the time because for years, the American coaches were drilling speed and technique, right? And what were the fucking Russians and the Chinese doing?
Just strength.
Limit strength. They're fucking front squatting 700 pounds. Seriously. You know what I mean? And the American weight with the speed and technique. Speed and technique gets you so far. You got to be fucking strong, right? Like you look at Misha, the Clive. Misha, he's a friend of mine. But you look at him. He's a good weightlifter. His speed and technique his speed is good, but the weightlifting technique is not, not the best in the world. But he's fucking strong, right? Strength wins.
Yeah.
If you come to me for the summer, right? And let's say your max squat is 200 pounds and your max deadlift is 200 pounds, and we work our asses off over the summer, and you don't clean and jerk or snatch for the whole summer, but I get your squat and deadlift up to 300 pounds. Did you clean and jerk and snatch go up? Yeah. Probably a lot more than they did by drilling speed and technique, right? So if I program for a weightlifter, they're going to be doing a lot of limit strength work. They're going to be doing a lot of powerlifting style work, but on exercises that will transfer over more to a weightlifter, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I like it.
And they don't like it because it's not, it's not what they see everybody else do. Okay? So you don't have to use my service.
So you would say that like you predominantly, your main demographic programming is going to be more for like strength training. That's kind of like your jam.
Yeah, I haven't trained. I did train somebody that won the Arnold in weightlifting. So I know it works. I know it works, you know what I mean? But it's powerlifting mostly and general fitness, right? And strongman, a lot of strongman guys don't really, from what I see, use too many coaches. They tend to train more with crews, right? But there are plenty that use strongman coaches. I don't get a lot of call for it, but I'll do strongman programming as well. I used to do a ton of strongman programming. And now, I don't know, just maybe I got away from it because I can't do it anymore. I don't talk about it too much. I don't know, Like I hired a guy to work for me, now owns his own place. He's an outstanding coach. And when I hired him, it's because he just took over all the strongman stuff because I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So any strongman clients came in and went to him. And now he's got his own place and it's predominantly strongman, and he does an absolutely smashing job, as you would say. Smashing. And he's a good human being too, which makes that's more important.
Yeah.
So I don't really talk about the strongman too much. So maybe that's why, I don't know.
So like if someone, do you program for just anyone? Could someone just email you and be like, hey, or how would do you put it? Like
Total Performance will program for anyone. I won't.
Okay. We
do online programming for anyone, right? So beginner to advanced, professional athlete to, somebody that's never touched a weight before. But I won't. I interview people and I decide whether or not I want to work with them. Because I don't have the emotional energy to deal with some of the things that people do. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
The amount of money you're going to pay me for a program is not worth the emotional investment I have if you're going to be emailing me and calling me crying because of something happened with your fucking boyfriend, or I know you're not doing the accessory work. Well, don't the program works, you didn't work. So I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah.
So I kind of pre-qualify the people that I work with.
For sure.
And the person I work with doesn't have to be, a stud. I have a new client that I have in the mornings that is human veal. And she's got difficulty with balance and mobility, and she's got an inner ear problem that affects her. She can't do anything on one leg, but she gives me 100% every day and doesn't complain. I'll train you. Do you know what I mean? She can't squat 100 pounds, right? But she couldn't squat 40 pounds when she started.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where you are. It's your attitude that I'm more concerned with.
100%.
That makes sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, totally. I feel like I am very similar in like the kind of clients that I take on board. Like I'm similar to you where like firstly, I actually I don't have a personal training like license, like your degree or whatever. Like in England, there's like different things that you can do, like group class instructor, you do like a personal trainer level 3, and like I've obviously like
I'm a certified master trainer. Ooh,
yeah, so like
who gives a fuck?
I don't have that degree. I've just like I started with CrossFit, like, and it's actually coming up to, I think May is like 9 years of me coaching, and so in those 9 years, it's like I went to every gym across like Canada, America, like in England. I learned from different coaches. I watched, I took notes, I went on seminars.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because actually, like 9 years ago, like Instagram and social media was just kind of starting. So it wasn't, all this stuff wasn't so readily available. Like I flew from Vancouver, Canada to Ohio to go to Conjugate, right? To meet like Laura and Shane, and to just like learn how to powerlift better, because that in my mind, I was like, I learn hands-on, right? So I'm very much the same. And like when it comes to things with choosing like who you're going to coach and like whatever, like I generally try and find, and my clients now, I love them to pieces, but like they you can just tell that they want it. And I feel like that's half of it, right? Like it doesn't necessarily, and I have all age ranges as well. Like I have one lady, she's like in her 50s, and I mean when we started,
wow, that's old.
No, it's not. That's not that old.
Oh, 50s? Anyway.
No, but I mean when I met her, right, she was struggling to like move. I'm like, I can go with old if you want me to go down the old route.
I'm in my 50s.
Yeah, you're not old. I feel like if you get past like 30, you realize that nothing's actually old.
Okay. I was just breaking false.
But she was struggling to move like a 5-kilo dumbbell, and like in the space of a year, and I said to her, I was like, you need to trust me, trust the process, and just do your best every single time, and know that I'm not going to put you in any form of harm's way. My goal is to help you get better. And now she is an absolute weapon. Like I've got her doing like handstands. She is a weapon.
That's awesome.
Can
I use that?
100%.
Weapon, I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I've got her like learning like advanced gymnastics. We're trying to do like handstand push-ups now. She can move a 15-kilo dumbbell around, like dumbbell snatches, clean and jerks, clean and presses, seated presses with 12-kilo dumbbells in each hand, which like I struggle with at the best of times. And just like an absolute machine. And I was like, like every time currently because of lockdown, it's all on Zoom, right? But even via Zoom, like every session, she just turns up and she's so keen, and it's like a joy. It's a joy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, and I have other people that like just on. I'm the same as you. Like I think we're both quite like, we're like people, right? So like we get quite emotionally invested in the process, and like you want people to be better. So when someone doesn't give that kind of enthusiasm back to you,
I can't. I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah. So I 100% like I completely agree. Like, and I recognize where you're coming from, because I feel like I'm the same. And sometimes I'm like, am I a douchebag for saying that? But I think when you care so much about people and you put so much into that, like when you are writing your own personalized program for that one person, you're not just like copying and pasting stuff from everywhere else. You're watching this person being like, right, here's this, and we're going to work on it like this, and we're going to do this, and all of it's like to them, right?
Yep.
So no, I'm glad that you said it out loud first, not me.
So when I started the company, you know, they want you to come up with I can't think of the name of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. I've been hitting the head a lot, so I kind of forget things.
Okay.
But the goal, what's the company's goal? Mission statement. And the only thing I could come up with was this when we started in '99, right? So 1999, when I opened up, it was to provide $2 in value or service for every dollar spent. That was the only thing I could think of, right? So when you come in here, you're getting far more than what you paid for, because we're going to give you 100% every day, right? And I don't make the employees live up to that. That's the culture that I created, and that's our motto. It's on the website, right? And it's really painful when you have to deal with somebody that's not giving you 100%. And it's so, like, I don't really train that many people, but it's by choice. It's not because there's not business for it. There's tons. I might have to put on another guy or another girl, because since they opened us back up from COVID, we're only allowed to be at 50% of our capacity right now, but it's the PT department's picking up and most of my coaches are full. So I may have to hire somebody full time, right? Or I could pick up the clients, but I'm just not training somebody to walk through the door, because I can't get them, you know, I'll tell them to fuck themselves, get out. I don't need your money, get out. Well, I need your money, but I don't need it that bad, you know? So I'm just not doing it.
I love that mentality. And actually, like, even when I went to Conjugate, like, Shane said the same thing to me. He was like, Leo, like, if you ever open your own gym, he's like, if someone is not fitting into the culture that you want, he's like, it doesn't matter whether they're paying you the most or the least. He's like, that one person can so easily like poison the well, right? Yeah, and he's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you need to think about like the people you want in there more than the money. And he's like, don't ever feel embarrassed to ask someone to leave if they're not fitting.
So,
vision, right?
Dr. Hatfield, Fred Hatfield.
Yeah, so like it's great.
I had a client that I dreaded training when I first started. You know, when you first start, you're taking anybody that walks through the door, you need that money. You got rent to pay, right? So when I first opened up, I had a client that I trained trained the person 3 times a week. And it got to be after 3 or 4 months, it was like, you know, what's the matter? I got fucking so-and-so coming in at 5 o'clock tonight. Bro, it's 9 in the morning. Why are you so stressed out? They suck. And so I called up Hatfield. I'm like, Fred, what do I do? How do I change this person's attitude? If you know him, you're not going to change his fucking attitude. Kick him out. Tell him to fuck off. I'm like, really? Fire him. Isn't that bad business? He goes, who gives a fuck? If he's a piece of shit, all his friends are pieces of shit too. I'm like, you're right. So a person came in. I said, listen, here's a check. It's not working out. You're just not the right person for us. You don't fit in here. They were like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, so then they, complaining. Like, go fuck yourself. You're weak. You're always going to be weak because you don't want to do the work. You quit on everything and you fucking complain the whole time. Fuck off. Go over here. So-and-so will train you. They'll take anybody. Tell them I sent you. You know what happens? Everybody in the gym is in a better attitude all of a sudden, because that person, just like Shane said, brings everybody else down. So I was training somebody, and the other guy that works for me is training somebody, a couple people working out on their own. Everybody's down when that person comes in. Cut that cancer out. Attitude goes right back up.
For sure. Definitely. No, I always remember him saying that, and I was like, oh, what a valuable piece of advice. That I think nowadays, so many people are so quick to like just be like, oh, but we need the money, right? The money's more important now than like the actual, like, what you create, why you created that in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice, like, you know, when people kind of reaffirm that, because I think especially like when you're younger, and if the goal is to have your own business, you know, that you are kind of a little bit more driven by fear. But I think there's something in owning what you want and that vision.
You have to create a culture. You know, Fergus, culture coaches when you're not around. So there's a quote from a book. I'm trying to Google the name of the book right now because I forgot the book. Sorry.
Okay. I mean,
You know what? I don't have to do it now because I'm sucking up valuable time on this. But anyway, I can't remember the name of the book, but in the book, Culture Coaches When You're Not Around was one of the points. And he goes on to explain what that means, right? And he uses the example of a guy that he was at a military installation, I believe it was. And he was with like the commander or whatever his rank was. And they're walking through and there was a piece of trash on the floor. And the guy that ran the place bent over and picked it up. And he observed and he said to him, why did you do that? He goes, because that's the culture. We don't walk past things. We don't leave things the way they're not supposed to be. And we train everybody to be like that. And, if I'm going to create that environment, I have to do it myself too. I don't get somebody to go do it. I do it. And other people see me do it. And it's, if they see that and you set the expectations high. So Fergus put that phrase summed up my thoughts better than I could have summed up my thoughts. Culture coaches when you're not around. You create the culture of the right people with the right attitude and the right work ethic and the right amount of respect. You don't have to kick anybody out because those people will naturally filter themselves out at some point.
Yeah, true.
And if you have to filter them out, maybe you don't tell them to go fuck themselves like I do. But maybe you do, because I'm still going to do it. I'm not for everybody.
And that's fine.
That's totally fine. I'm okay with it.
Well, I mean, that if I lived in Boston and or the States somewhere nearby, I would be in there all the time.
You'd be working for me. What are you talking about? I'd have you working here as a coach.
What can we do? Immigration is difficult.
Well, let's see. We get married. My girlfriend would be pissed about that, but it was only for immigration purposes. I don't know. Sure, we can figure something out.
Oh, maybe one day. Maybe one day my time will come.
No, you never know.
It's true.
You never know.
There's like so many things that like we could talk about. Like I just love. I think that like I'm super into like the old school mentality of like how everything came up. So a lot more about the whole spit and sawdust type of like I like that old culture, right? Like I like that you're saying no one had coaches, there was no programming, you just kind of turned up, everyone helped you. Like I think now it's almost like there's too much information and too many opinions sometimes, and like you lose track of like focusing on the people that have been around for a while in the industry, who like probably have tried and tested, like you said, like many guinea pigs of like things that have worked, but there's so many different options. And like I said, like people kind of, oh no, well this is better. That I like the kind of the more mentality, but again, I am also the kind of person that like I would rather go to a gym than watch a YouTube video.
But so the thing in this industry you have to realize is that you said everybody's a fitness guru and everybody's this, everybody's that, right? But after a certain point, the frauds expose themselves, right? I mean, there's a couple big name people that are total fucking frauds, but the majority of the time, like, the flash in the pan people, especially the Instagram coaches, but, even like some people that were on network television shows where they physically tortured fat people and almost killed them, and people watched it and loved it and found out that, she was a huge fucking fraud, and so was he. And one of them still a fitness personality, but she was a complete fraud, did nothing about fitness. She was like Johnny Bravo from the Brady Bunch. She fit the suit. She was a look that the producers put on the she's a fucking psychopath. But anyway, the frauds sort themselves out, right? So if you're looking at people that have been in this industry and have been consistently doing things for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and they're not stopping or slowing down, they're only growing, maybe they know something. Might not know everything, but maybe we know something. And I can tell you, virtually everybody that's been in this industry for as long as I have, we all kind of say the same thing. Basics work. The basics work. You need to master the basics. And then you throw in some fancy stuff every now and then, but the basics fucking work. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
So, and that doesn't mean that there's not young coaches that are good. I know some young coaches that are outstanding, but if you're doing this for 25 or 30 years and you haven't gone out of business, it's not because you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Because the frauds work themselves out.
For sure.
Something to think about.
Yeah, 100%.
Like how many boxes in London opened up and then closed within a year, 2 years, or in your part of the world? Because over here, there was one in every corner, and there's not that many left because they were opened up by people that just went and got the weekend cert and didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
There was a lot of bad boxes, but there was a lot of good boxes too.
Yeah.
You know, so I know a couple of guys that own some really good boxes and they're thriving. You know, and all the other ones that really probably shouldn't have owned boxes, they're gone.
For sure. To be honest, like it's been it's definitely in the last, I would say, 4 years that suddenly like CrossFit's boomed. But it's just, I think it was never, finding space in London, at least in the city, is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And then just cost wise, it's so expensive to like set up and run. And, you know, I think the culture in, especially like, I think if you go outside of the city itself, like more into like suburbia, there are gyms out there that are just booming because, you know, they're smaller towns, you know, the whole family kind of gets involved because, you know, they're not in a main city. Whereas like in the city, I think it's becoming, I think this might annoy like some people that are like super
Yes.
but you know, I think CrossFit is now becoming like another version of like a fitness class, you know, so it's kind of like becoming like the F45, the Barry's boot camp, so it's staying there.
Oh, it's been that here for a long time.
Yeah, but we kind of like we weren't where the Americans were with it at all, so it's definitely in the last 4 years that all of a sudden there is a lot of them, like a lot more.
But that's not really a bad thing, is it? Well, I mean, do you do this to train people to compete at the CrossFit sport, or do you do this to make people better?
For me personally.
You personally.
I do it because I want people to understand how great of an impact like CrossFit and just like moving heavy things had in my life.
Okay, so isn't that?
I want them to have that. I want someone to walk in and be like, I could never do this, and just understand that it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what you sound like. They're like, I am here with you to help you. Like,
Isn't that adult fitness?
Crush it.
But isn't that adult fitness?
Yeah.
So what's wrong with that? You approach your adult fitness the way you want to. You put your CrossFit sign up, they come in, they get what you give them. And what you're giving them is probably better than some bullshit. So it's not a bad thing. Adult fitness, you know, people in my industry call like my TPS method class adult daycare, you know, because it's an adult group fitness program. I'm like, oh, you know what, bro? Why don't you take one of the fucking classes? You tell me if it's adult daycare. Because what are they doing today? They're doing 90% for fucking 4 sets of 4 today with a pause, right? And then they're doing an 8 rep max on a good morning. And then they're going to do, you know, these 2 exercises paired up and then these 2 exercises paired up. And, you know, pre-COVID, what are they doing? Well, they're going to do this. They're going to hit, you know, whatever. We're in a volume cycle. They're doing 5 sets of 6 at 80%, right? And then the secondary exercises, whatever it is. And then what are they doing? We're going to go over and we're going to run a medley and we're going to flip 800-pound tires and lift Atlas stones. So that's my adult fitness class. Maybe not a 100-pound tire. Could be a 600-pound tire or a 300-pound tire. But that's my adult fitness program. I'm not doing fucking rubber bands on a Bosu ball bullshit. You know what I mean? Yeah. They get what I give. You get what I give you, but what I give you is good. It's probably better than somebody else. Most likely better. I hope it is. For sure. So your adult fitness gets what you give them. Definitely. And I think we need to be thankful that adult fitness is a thing because that's what pays the bills. And we can interpret that any way that we want to, right? Yeah. So you interpret and you deliver your adult fitness in a manner that you see fit.
I like that, adult fitness. I feel like I might just refer to it as that now forever.
Take it. That's what it is though, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing.
No. That's good.
Sometimes we need to look through a different lens.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And like, yeah, I guess like I never really like thought of it that way. And like, I mean, I'm definitely like, I think especially like as I've got older, I've realized that like it really isn't actually about getting anyone to the games whatsoever. Because you know when you kind of like when you're younger and you start off, you're so into that kind of wrapped in that and like CrossFit like, shiny and bright. And you're like, oh my god, I have to do this. But I think like as I got older, I realized that actually like I want to do this. At least with weightlifting, I love to do it until I'm like super old. Even if I, you know, this tiny old lady just like lifting a bar, going. But you know, like I like it. it's like the best like hour of like I love it. Like I genuinely love moving that. So it's like that now it's really more just about having other people, you know, like you said, like just move, right? Like, okay, fine. Like maybe you're doing this because like you want to go out and drink wine on the weekend. And like, that's fine.
Motion is lotion was what I was trying to come up with earlier. We were talking about it. And I said, my buddy told me this great quote the other day. Anyway, go ahead. You just said, just move. Motion is lotion. Anyway, back to you.
No,
I knew I'd remember what it was.
I knew it would come to you an hour later.
It always does. So, yeah, adult fitness isn't a bad thing.
No, not at all.
You know, I muted the ringer so that wouldn't happen. Can you hear the phone ringing?
I can, but it's fine.
Apparently, I didn't. And it says ringer muted. Anyway, apparently it's not, but I'm looking at the phone. So, we've been going 90 minutes.
I know. We just got so carried away, and apparently it's still working. So I'm like, whatever. But to be fair, I feel like
but I gotta run because I got somebody coming in a minute.
That's fine.
But I think what we do is if more than 5 people watch this, I think we do it again.
I think we just do it again anyway because we like talking.
Oh, it's fucking fine with me.
Boom.
Totes fine with me, as the kids say.
Thank you so much for like taking your time. And
awesome.
It's been wonderful to see your face.
You too.
Have a lovely day. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.